We're ready to go, ready to go. So welcome everybody to the NBRA webinar for the virtual VDA, but it's a much larger discussion than just virtual VDA. We're talking about VDA as an employee and as the main strategic person within a body shop. So before we go there, I'd like to welcome on today's webinar as panelist, Mick Walker. So Mick, you've come from the shop floor as a mechanical technician. You've been a vehicle examiner, accident investigator. You've studied with the IAEA. You've worked for an independent engineering company at DW Norris. You've been a body shop owner, and you've also been a company owner of an independent engineering company. You worked at Glasses. You're a network manager at FMG and the RAC, and now recently you're Intel Auto, the founder of, and now building technology platforms for the repair community in order that we can share the knowledge. So welcome, Mick.
Thank you.
And we have our one and only Andy Watson, Director of Crash Assessor UK and Silverster Crash Repair, and has recently purchased a body shop to sort of pour all his knowledge that he's learned over the years into the body shop. He's been working in and supporting the accident repair industry for over 20 years. Currently employs 12 members of staff, 5 being qualified, fully qualified and experienced VDAs and growing. So welcome, Andy.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. So content we're going to go through today is going to be understanding VDA variances, because there's a massive scale of VDA from 1 to 4. Then we're going to look at VDA efficiency and productivity. We're going to go for our first poll. As normal, we've got some questions that we'd like you to answer. And we'd also look at technology being rolled out at an alarming rate, which is quite a common phrase these days, but the VDA is impacted by this quite enormously, really. And then we got the VDA solution, looking at that. We got a second poll with some more questions, which we'd like you to interactively get involved with. And then we'll look at the virtual VDA, and Mick and Andy will walk us through that piece. And then benefits to the repairer of looking outside the box and utilizing other tools for VDA and estimating. Then Andy's going to talk to us about some of the offers available at the moment. And then we've got the Q&A session. So if you've got questions, put them through as we go through the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer them going through. And if we don't, then we'll answer them at the end of the Q&A. So without further ado, so what types of VDA are there? We have the VDA technician owner manager. That's a very, very busy role. So someone that's dedicated to the VDA technician, someone that's got the estimating responsibility, but still works on the tools. Then we have the dedicated VDA with no qualifications. This is someone that's probably come up through the workshop, been given the responsibility of estimating, and then that's where they're at the moment. And then you have the qualified VDA, that is someone that's completed their VDA ATA and estimating assessment, through Auditex or GT Motive or similar. And then we have a qualified VDA with additional competent training. So what we mean by this is someone that's got the qualification as a VDA, and then they've gone on and enhanced their training through something like ADAS in line with IAR and other qualifications. So, Mick, I'll come to you first. So VDA technician owner manager, how efficient do you think they're going to be as a VDA?
So I think, probably speaking to all of the audience, I dare say the vast majority of people have been in that position before. So whether it be that you are a small shop with the manager doing all the senior roles and trying to fit in, whether it be estimating, complaints, finance, etc., etc. So in real terms, his VDA ability in that, or his availability, is probably about 15–20% tops. It's really quite a difficult thing to run, and that's the reason why the majority of people employ a VDA specific.
Yeah, there's 4 sort of terms here for VDA. You've got one that's really busy in a body shop that potentially isn't giving enough time to creating an estimate. And then obviously, if you haven't written the right estimate, that's probably going to come back and bite you at some point. And that could possibly be true at the second one as well. Someone that's a VDA that's come up through the ranks and learnt the ropes, but without any real training. And then we've got the qualified VDA, which probably, Andy, would you say this sort of broke in same time as the BSI broke in?
Yeah, there's more education required for VDAs now, I believe. I think it's been more recent than not with the ADAS competencies, with the new technology, with hybrid electric vehicles being more prominent within the body repair sector. There's a lot more for a VDA to understand what goes on with technology these days, with repair techniques and so on and so on. So yeah, I think it's become more than just a VDA role. I think it's quite challenging for some people out there if they've not come from the shop floor. Also, it's quite difficult. But there's lots of training out there. There's lots of good people out there to be able to give lots of VDA training. When I started, there wasn't a lot of help out there for VDAs. Now there's some really good people out there. So that do various different training for VDAs, not just on a technical background, but on on a soft skill background and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's definitely evolved quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. We will come back to those for VDA. But if we look at a productivity and efficiency sort of page here, which we base this on a medium-sized body shop, probably about 20,000 square feet, 15 productives. Typically, a medium-sized repair is 2 VDAs. Repairing roughly 40 cars a week equates to about 4 estimates a day. So that gives them 1.75 hours to spend on each estimate, which sounds like an awful lot of time to sit down and create an estimate. But then that's from cradle to grave. So it needs to be penny perfect, job done. And, typical challenges to this in an ideal world are listed below. They commonly get involved in complaints and rectifications. They negotiate and chase authorities for the stuff that's pending with either internal engineers and such like, and then amend estimates as parts prices come back. Is that quite a big problem, would you see, Andy?
Yeah, the amendments in some repairers that we deal with are a bit of a headache. It depends on what sort of process people have got in place. If you've got a good process in place and you've got people who can time manage, and they can control the repair through the estimate. So if people are managing the repair from, like you say, from cradle to grave side of things, then it becomes a bit easier. But there's a lot of time spent on costings, a lot of time spent on invoicing. As we all know, if we don't get this right and deal with it quick, it's wooden dollars. You need the money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple of the other challenges would be on-site estimated discussions with customers. So if someone drives their vehicle and wants an estimate, that's quite time consuming as well. Treating the customer right, going through the estimate with them, and then handover jobs are the reverse. So, every body shop's different, I get that. But you've got VDAs that commonly hand over the vehicles to the customer because they know what's gone on with the vehicle. And some customers want to know to the nth depth what is actually happened to their vehicle, what's been repaired, what's been replaced, and the micros on the paint as well. And then you have job cards. Some of these are created by the VDA. And then sick leave, holidays, parental leave, who covers that? I mean, I've seen from my own experience working for a big group of repairers that when one VDA unexpectedly doesn't come in, then the other VDA needs to pick up a lot of that slack. And that creates a massive pressure cooker sort of environment. Mick, from your experience, have you seen that happen when you in the body shop and such like?
Yeah, completely. It can create a shockwave because if you've got some of those VDAs going out doing mobile estimates on site with customers, that in a group circumstance, that could actually mean that the one VDA that's on site, that's been left on his own, as it were, hands out all the rest of that work to the other sites. So if you've got 5 sites in a region, potentially those other 5 sites are having to catch up that slack as well. So it's not just the one site. But also we've not considered the traveling time in there, as you say, all the other bits and pieces. And when you get to the final account, I would say, has been, historically an engineer, the number of times we get an assessment through that's got parts price increases at the last ditch.
Yeah.
They virtually every case itself, because parts prices on some of the estimating platforms aren't up to date.
No, and that is an issue. And then that gets stuck in pending, whether it's with Auditex or let's come back to that in a minute. So we've got our first poll and our first set of questions coming up. So there is no wrong answer for this. So when you're answering them, answer them as honestly as you can, and let's see where we get. So where would you position your VDA in your business in the below categories? Would you say they are a VDA technician, owner, manager, dedicated VDA, no qualifications, qualified VDA, or qualified VDA with additional competent training and technology? Second question, do VDAs have regular training? If so, how often? And again, there is no wrong answer for this either. So, painfully aware VDAs probably don't get the training they need and deserve moving into a very technological environment. So would it be every month, every quarter, once a year, or you simply don't have time? They're too busy pushing out the estimates. And then, do you utilize a remote VDA service already? Yes or no? Do you sublet that service out? Are your VDAs aware of the repair processes and what can be repaired or over replaced? So, it's becoming very, very common now for manufacturers to say, no, you cannot repair this panel or this bumper because it has safety implications for either the pedestrian, the occupants of the vehicle, etc., etc. Do you think your VDA would know right from wrong there? And this is all, completely, no one's going to know the identities of where these answers come from. It just gives us an indication as to what's out there. So just wait for those answers to come back in. This is where you need a little bit of music for the intro.
Your hold music.
Yeah. So here we go. So where would you position your, so it's quite heavily skilled then, which is good. So, 42% qualified VDA, 47% has taken that training to a higher level. 10% are between VDA, owner manager, and dedicated VDA. And again, that there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And then, does your VDA have regular training? Once a year, 63%. Don't have time, 11%. Every quarter, 21%. Every month, 5%. So even once a year probably isn't enough, I would say. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mick and Andy. I
think with the technology that changes on a week-to-week basis in some cases, I'm again not calling anybody out because it's a pressurized position, but once a year, appears not to be sufficient. No. And there's a lot of training that can be done online here as well. So, new vehicles coming out onto the marketplace, new materials being used, new technology. It's that time for study, really. Do you utilize a remote VDA service already? No, 74%, 26% are yes. So that's interesting. Are your VDAs aware of the repair processes and what can be repaired over replace? Yes, 95%, brilliant. Not sure, 5%, so there's room to go out there. That's really enlightening, I think. Anything from Mick or Andy?
No, I'm looking through it. There's with the VDA training, I still think again, as much as it's people think it's down to the repairer to kind of shell out on the training, the individual themselves could find time to self-develop. Again, there's forums, there's Facebook pages, there's other people around, as well as what we do and what we're trying to achieve for the repairer. And obviously there's the face-to-face training as well, online training, that the repairer can help and support with on that. So that's my thoughts there at the moment.
Yeah,
I think looking into the slight future, the next sort of half an hour or so with the presentation, looking at the once a year training situation, part of what we're trying to do and what we'll come to is the sharing of knowledge. And if we can produce and share knowledge amongst the community, if you like, within the repair industry, then actually that can backfill some of that education once a year.
Yeah. And do you know what? Once a year, that surprised me. That's more than what I thought was out in the industry anyway. And that's only my own opinion. And the word I was looking for earlier was anonymous. Easier for you to say, but that's the word I was looking for. Okay, let's move on. So VDA and technology. So we completed an EV webinar the other week, which was highly enlightening, reference all the technology that's on the road. But, you know, when we're looking at a VDA, our repairers looking at allocating dedicated time to a VDA so they can go away and they can study. Our repairers looking at a budget for training for VDA. So instead of it being, all right, you got to go on that course, we've got to find the money. Are you putting money away to actually look at that? And, you know, we looked at 48 volts, EV, ADAS, hybrid, various substrates now. You've got alloys, and then you've got steels, which are high strength steels, boron steels, press hardened steels. What's the difference? Well, aluminium came into the marketplace and everyone was like, right, that's the material to use. It takes a lot of weight out of the vehicle, creates the capacity for electric vehicles to come online. And then steel have come into their own with their own technologies, recreating steel so it's lighter. But that is a complex situation for a VDA to know what to repair, what to replace, and how to actually get on board with this new technology. What are your thoughts on that? I'll go to you, Mick.
So yeah, as we said, the materials and technology is changing literally week on week. Excuse me. I was talking to a manufacturer who's brand new to the market, and they've produced their own, effectively a moldable plastic that can then come out into various forms, whether it be outer panels, inner panels, trim pieces, etc. And this stuff hasn't hit the market yet, but the vehicles are going to be on the road probably by the end of this year.
Yeah.
So we don't even know what stuff is coming down the line. So that, you know, with the engineers, that, you know, let's go back to that once a year situation. And again, certainly not calling that out, as you say, it's probably more than a lot of places do. But this materials changing is happening every single day and dropping into the market every single day.
And it's almost like under the radar. So, you know, a lot of the 48 volt stuff came out under the radar without a big splash. I mean, looking at the images below, you've got the Ford Fiesta, which is the biggest selling car in the UK. And that's now packed with technology. And so is your Nissan Micros. You can have that lit up like a Christmas tree when it regards to ADAS. You've got a Tesla power plant there that is, you know, more common than what it was, but it's still complex. You've got the Tesla far right, and then you've got that start stop button, which is, you know, a lot of people press that button, start their cars, off they go. They haven't got a clue what technology is sitting in behind there. So Andy, coming to you then, what can be repaired and what needs to be replaced? Because this is quite complex, and you must see this a lot when you're dealing with other body shops and training, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, what you've got to do is understand the vehicle you're working on. Again, by looking at recognised repair methods and researching what's on the vehicle, and what the manufacturer are asking for, and what the likes of Thatcher have researched to help you with that understanding and decision on repairing. Obviously, we need to repair the car back to the way it was before the pre-accident condition, so it will perform again in an accident, because we have to do that as part and parcel of why we repair cars the way we do. But at the same time, we're in business to be able to try and we need to make profit. So we all know that selling labour will obviously increase profit. Parts these days, you do still get some good parts discounts, but generally it holds up the repair, it reduces profit, and so on. So it's looking at the material types on the vehicle, looking at what the manufacturer says you can and can't repair, looking at the repair technology out there. Like Mick was just saying about plastics, the plastic repair technology out there has advanced so much. There's lots of things out there that you can almost weld plastics together that are almost the same as they were when they come from the factory.
Yeah.
But we've just got to be able to, we have to have that time to write the estimate correctly. We need to look at the technology in the car, look at what we can and can't do, make the right decisions on the repair over replace, and go from there. Really, again, that's why education is needed. Like the old saying, knowledge is power, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you understand what you're doing, if you don't know, there's people around you that will be able to help you. You know, it may not be in your workplace, but there's people around you that you'll be able to pick the phone up or drop an email or do a WhatsApp message, and you know, people are there to support. We should work together in the industry and help each other.
Absolutely.
That's my mindset.
And I think we've got a solution for that coming up later on. But from my mind, I think this is past the point where the horse is possibly bolted, right? So when you get on an insurance company, ethanol, they've taken a risk on of a vehicle, yeah, and then they give that out to their network as a repairable proposition to indemnify the customer, but they do not know what they're passing on to the repairer. They do not know the capabilities of that repairer until the VDA looks at this all-encompassing vehicle with the damage and says, well, hang on a minute, we haven't got aluminium structural technicians, we can't repair this, but by which time the car could already have landed at the body shop. So I think there's probably a bit of work to do there. And it's just given me an idea for another webinar, but we will move on.
I think that's true. I think the other problem with now we've got IIR, that responsibility falls upon the repairer and therefore the VDA to make sure that the IIR requirements are met.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Easy for you to say.
I wish it was.
So business solutions then, looking at, you know, how we can help businesses and how we can make this an easier journey. What if you could book an online assessment with 24 hours SLA at a fixed cost? I mean, in a business environment, if your VDA doesn't come in one day and you've still got these 4 estimates to do, I'd say it was unfair to try and pass that on to the next VDA, because then he's got 8 estimates to do. They're not going to be done at the same quality, I wouldn't imagine. And what if you could increase your average hours and paints and materials by someone possibly with more experience and relationships with insurers agreeing those rates? You know, a lot of these benefits here are something that we're looking at today. So, you know, Andy, you deal with this on a day-to-day basis, don't you? You pick up an estimate or you get a request from a repairer. And is this the type of benefits you regularly see?
So for the SLA side of things is where our service and helps reduce the cycle times. Is helping the repairer. We're not trying to put people out of work, and we're not trying to, you know, kind of undermine anybody. But what we want to do is help the repairer get, you know, a better SLA and get better better results. I should say on that. If we can help triage the work, that helps massively. You know, we're able to spend a bit more time on the estimate. I've worked in body shops and it's been very difficult in some days, you know, where you're kind of really up against it, and you do take your eye off the ball, or halfway through an estimate you're not really focused on it, or you're pulled away from an estimate, you go back to it and you kind of have to try and get on with it, and then you're pulled away again, or have to answer the phone. So, you know, there's certain things that a VDA on site can control and look after very well. There's benefits that we bring, and you know, and a remote service that helps that that continuous flow of work, and loads of other little benefits that go with it as well. You know, we support the VDAs that are on site. Yeah, we will help. We will be part of the repairer. You know, we will speak to the customers. We will deal with the engineers. You know, on behalf of the repairer. You know, yeah. We're almost there. Remote estimating facility, I suppose you can call it.
So I'm almost looking at this as a release valve then. So yeah. If you've got too many estimates on site, A, it's unfair on the current VDA to up his game and try and clear all those. B, if you're the owner of the business, you're probably not going to get the same quality and attention to the rest of those 8 estimates that you would for the 4 that the VDA are destined to do. We've just had one question come in, and I think it's quite apt to try and answer it now. So the question is, do you think it's about time that work providers pay for a reasonable estimate. Well, I think from my knowledge, some work providers do pay for estimating charges, don't they?
Yeah, we've seen estimating charges accepted by insurers and by third parties. There's an inherent cost, whether it be your labour for the man to do the job itself, the actual estimating platform, your method research, not just actually pulling down the methods, but actually reading the methods and the time to understand the technology that's fixed the vehicle. So yeah, absolutely. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be a cost that every repairer carries every day. And
I also think that helps create a better estimate as well, because it allows the repairer to invest into that journey.
Well, it becomes something that's not for free. So if anything that's done for free effectively is you're trying to get away as cheaply as you can almost. So the more time you can spend on it, if you can justify the time and you can get paid for the time,
yeah,
absolute benefit.
Okay, thank you, Mick. And then what if 99% of all estimates returned would pass through out of audit? So I've seen plenty of estimates that come through and there's something wrong with it, but the VDA hasn't got time to then circumnavigate, go back to it, correct it, so it does go through, and they end up in potentially pending for auditex and such like, and then that creates a cash flow issue. So I assume that, via subletting some of this service out allows the original VDA to concentrate and get the quality right, and then your services would then get a high percentage of that through anyway.
Well, again, yeah, with the 99%, like I say, when you do an estimate, you're able to you should follow the estimate right the way through, manage your own estimate, follow it through. So you're able to kind of, when it's sent, you should be checking to make sure that it's not still popped back as an audit fail. But if you're following the right SLA and the menu pricing and your zone 99s, and you're doing the estimate as it should be, and overselling and kind of producing the right estimate to make it go through, following the right procedures, you shouldn't have that much of an issue. Again, it's just having that time sometimes to keep on top of it all.
No, and then the next question is quite a poignant one, because obviously they've just extended furlough up until September. Some VDAs have been on furlough, some have come back. It's a tricky time knowing what volume is going to come through next week. Am I going to be able to employ that VDA for a full week? Do I need him for 1 day, 2 days? And again, this service could help with that dynamic being a little bit more fluid. Is that something you're seeing already, Andy?
Yeah, unfortunately, like everybody knows, it's been inconsistent. We've had a massive drop in claims, and not just claims, but in people are, even retail shops are even going, they've seen a reduction because people are a bit worried about their jobs, or worried about the COVID, catching the virus, and so on. We've just seen an influx this week. So from Saturday and Sunday, we've had loads of inquiries via an email come through to the body shop, and we're starting to see a bit bigger movement. We're starting to see more claims coming through through the hub, and so on and so on. But we don't know how long this is going to could continue. It may be just a blip for a week, and then we bring everybody back, and then, oh no, we can't do that anymore, we've got to take people back on furlough. It's a very difficult one for body shop owners to manage, and kind of, I wish we all had a crystal ball, but and looking at workflow, it's almost like, do we just hold out a bit longer, put a bit more pressure on everybody else? Put pressure on everybody else, then starts having a few, issues it brings, not just in the workshop, but in the admin team, estimating team. So if you've got a resource that you can just rely on ad hoc and call to and trust and rely on, then the furlough scheme would work very nicely. It is a hard one. It's a very difficult one.
No, it is a difficult one, but I mean, when cash flow is so difficult to handle at the moment, then it seems like almost a good solution to try a matrix of various VDA on site, various VDA on furlough, and try a different outletting source to try and accommodate that to help the business forward. And then the estimates would be IIR and BSI compliant, allows you to work with the surge of work. and we're hoping it's going to be a surge of work when the schools go back, you know, and then when in September, when the furlough comes to an end, we're just coming into autumn, which tends to be the busy period for our sector anyway. Cut down on estimating software or overheads. We'll come to that in a minute, but this really should be a win-win scenario for both work providers, insurers, and the repairer. So, you know, if we can cut down the key-to-key times by the SLAs for estimating being shorter, you have a consistent estimating presentation, and when you produce a quality estimate, then, you know, the work provider then begins to trust who's creating that estimate, and it probably flows through a little bit easier. Is that something you would see, Mick?
Yeah, completely. Excuse me. It's a kind of a bit of a future wish to some extent. So the perfect scenario is when a vehicle comes in for repair, we generally agree as an industry that there is one way to repair the vehicle. There is opinion time around a repair panel, but effectively that's the limitation. Your hourly rates, etc., are already built into your contract if you contract it. So actually, the engineer should be able to look at an assessment and go, absolutely, that's where I want to be in terms of the repair method. The opinion times are accurate. It's come from a known source, i.e. crash assessor. They know that the final figures are going to be within tolerance, and they'll reward it after the event anyway. And so in real terms, it should be the perfect scenario. It should be a rubber stamp, and off it goes back to the repairer with an authority.
Yeah, thank you, Mick. The question too, whether, you know, the industry should start charging for estimates, has come back in, and what would I consider a fair charge for that estimate? Well, I think it would probably range. I think a fair charge would be for a VDA to sit down and spend quality time doing an estimate. Now, an estimate can take a relatively short period of time, depending on what the nature of the repair is, to quite a complex repair. So if I were to ballpark figure it, I'd probably say between £40 and £50.
I would consider that should be ranked or ranged based on the complexity of the repair. So if you've got a scrape on the back of a mirror that's not got ADAS on, then in real terms that's a half an hour of a job. But if you've got a massive, a large front end collision on a complex Mercedes, for example, then that's going to take your VDA 2 to 3 hours potentially to get down.
Yeah, no, I agree. That model's not been built yet, but food for thought. So VDA productivity and efficiency, we've covered that. And then looking at the cost of a VDA. So this has been supplied to us, and you've got the salary trending. Andy, do you want to walk us through this one?
Oh yeah, like I say, it's quite clear on there about the last, since March last year. March last year. You could see the salaries before around the lockdown period at around 36,000, 34,000. It dropped quite considerably. We saw a lot of this dropping through last year. I don't know whether it was because people were just being furloughed and they weren't employing anybody, so the stats were a bit lower, but it peaked massively when we come out of lockdown, so when people were getting re-employed and so on. It got right up to nearly £40,000 at one stage for a VDA. And I know most people would love that sort of wage, but it varies as well in what part of the world you are as well. If you're in the south of England, so north of England, I travel up and down the country quite a bit, and I see a varied wage for a VDA, and some are very, very good and get paid very, very little. But it just depends where they are. Now, as it's gone through, we're looking at that around £35,000 mark for a VDA, and that's just a basic kind of VDA with no packages, involved either. So. That's where the trend is, as of February 21 on there.
And then you got a number of vacancies as well. They peaked in September 20, so just below probably about 275 vacancies, and now it's just below 200. So there's still quite a lot of vacancies out there. There's
a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that are unemployed, and it's a shame, really. But it's one of those difficult times of the world, isn't it? So
Yeah. Well, if you are looking for a job, then you can post it on the MBRA job page. So, and good luck to you. So on to the next page, which is poll 2. So some more questions coming up. There you go. With what you know now, where would you position your VDA in the below categories? So perhaps some of the information we've shared may have changed your view, or may not. And again, it's anonymous, so just put your answers down. Second question, do you have a regular backlog of estimates? If so, is it that big or is it that big? Are you regularly missing work provider estimating SLAs? So, you know, whether you've got a work provider that comes in and audits on a quarterly basis, whether it's a big work provider that is constantly on at this, where it's got the key to keys, and one of the metrics is, you know, providing an estimate within X amount of hours or days. Where are you with that? Are you constantly missing it, constantly hitting it? Do you think this is something that you could use assistance with? Just wait for them.
Just on the last subject, Tom, about missing SLAs.
Yeah.
Them speaking to a large non-faulter earlier on, sorry, end of last year, they were suggesting that they're losing huge hires on a monthly basis, huge hire costs, because they're not getting their estimates in within the 24, 48.
Right.
And that's been passed on to some of the repairers. So there's a huge potential for losing out, you know, if you're not getting that estimate turned around on time.
Yeah.
The flexibility of this service provides that for you, you know, at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's like every part of the SLA, isn't it? If you don't get it right from the offset, it's going to kind of just have a chain reaction through, and you know you're struggling from the forefront really.
Yeah.
To get it right from the beginning, and that's even from FNAL really into estimating and so on, and making sure it's managed correctly. It should work quite nicely.
We'll have a look at the answers in a minute. So I can't remember if some of these have changed or not changed. I think they have changed, and it's still good to know that, you know, the quality of the VDA is quite a high percentage out there in the industry, with a little bit more work to do in some areas. Do you have a regular backlog of estimates? No, 88% are on top of it. 12% need a bit of assistance there. So perhaps that 12% would benefit from the services we're going to be talking about. Are you regularly missing work provider estimates, SLAs? No, 71%. Yes, 12%. 18% not sure. So perhaps a bit of training on what SLAs to look for there to be compliant with the work provider. Really.
Sorry, Tom, I was just going to suggest another question we could have put in was, how stressed is your VDA on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah. Do you think 10's high enough?
Maybe not.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Perhaps that'll come up in the Q&As. But I really appreciate everyone's honesty on that one. We got some questions coming through, but we're going to pass on through to this and we'll get to the questions at the end now. So in collaboration, the MBRA is working with Intel Auto and virtualvda.co.uk and Crash Assessor UK. So together we've built a system. Well, I haven't built a system, we're hosting the system. So Mick and Andy are the brains behind this. And it's a solution for some of the questions that we've posed prior to this coming up. So rather than steal anyone's thunder, Mick, would you like to walk us through the initial part of this?
Yeah, completely. So Intel Auto, as a bit of a precursor, Intel Auto is about sharing of knowledge. And as we mentioned earlier, the amount of information that floats around the system and the industry at the moment is enormous. So we're out there for the repairer and sitting alongside the MBRA, hope to provide, and I'll call it free of charge to some extent, free of charge information to repairers as the time progresses. Virtualvda.co.uk allows the repairer to take up the option of getting an outsourced estimate completed by Andy's team. It's method driven, it's resourced and researched. The guys there aren't doing anything else, they're just doing VDA work. So effectively, you're not being broken off midway. Can you just come and have a look at the customer's car, etc., etc. So it really does provide a really good outsource opportunity. This is the portal that you would normally go to actually request a virtual VDA product or service rather. So you can actually see in there, I don't know whether you can see these, but there's obviously request a virtual VDA. There's a tips and training, access to my saved rates, etc. A lot of these are going to come further down the line and will expand upon the Intel Auto knowledge sharing base. But if you just click through to the next one for me, Tom, please. So effectively you click through and you then fill in really fairly straightforward information about the vehicle, reg number, obviously a VIN number, mileage and dashboard, and we expect these in image form. Once you then complete that, you can actually input both images and video. So that will give Andy the opportunity and his team for the opportunity to actually walk around the vehicle and pick up not just on the areas that you've identified or potentially your driver's identified to be put there for the assessment to be compiled, but Andy can pick up additional work there, potentially even upsell as the product goes forward.
Yeah, so prior to getting onto this page, someone will have already ticked the terms and conditions, which will be for Intel Auto and for crashassessor.uk.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what we ask is that when they log on and when they register, they use their company email address. What we don't want to do is get spurious individuals, as let's call them, testing the system or sending through spurious requests. And also the MBRA's reference number or membership number, so we can validate those individuals.
Yeah, cool. Anything you want to say on that, Andy?
I think Mick's kind of gone through it. If they go to the website, it's quite clear about how you do things. It's really straightforward. Just upload some data, put some notes in the system to see whether or not they spoke to the customer. If not, obviously we're happy to speak to the customer on their behalf, because we need to obviously qualify circumstances, areas of damage, and so on. Just build that rapport again with the customer. Lots of information on the website, but also you can speak to one of us at any time and we'll be able to run through it with you and even run through how it works again even more after this.
So there's notes fields as well at the bottom, so you can add in there your hourly rate, any menu pricing scheme you wish to use, or menu pricing items you want to use. So it provides the depth of knowledge so Andy's team can produce the assessment. Okay,
so this is the magical part then. So the costing, and you want to talk, who wants to take this one?
Go on, Andy, that's yours.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's all there in black and white on the system. There's an estimate that can be produced using our text or our GT motive, or what we can also do is use the repairers. The price varies on there, starting from about $34.50, but with the MBA members, they get an additional discount on that anyway. Obviously, we need to know what we're doing at the time of the estimate. Again, put notes in, because we may need to arrange setting up logins on the repairer's behalf and so on. But again, we will talk through that at the time of setup. Again, it's clear as mud really in the thing there. So
once the repair has actually submitted the case, they get an email back confirming that the case is live and with Andy's team. And then once Andy's team's actually completed the assessment and loads it back onto the system, then the repairer gets an email back on that, obviously the repairer's email, to confirm that there's an estimate there waiting to be drawn down. That means we can stay inside the GDPR rules and regulations. We're not sending things by email, etc.
Okay, and when do I get a bill?
Yeah, well, basically what happened, because once you set up an account via the virtual VDA.co.uk, it will set up an automatic account number. That's right, isn't it, Mick, on that one? Right. So it sets up an account number. I then get to see who has set up the account, and then on a Friday we invoice on a Friday for the value of the amount of estimates that have been done. And that's it. You'll get a service contract that will come through. Will explain terms and conditions as well as payment conditions and stuff like that as well. And we are quite friendly with stuff. We're quite you know, if people want to talk to us about payment terms and terms and conditions, you know, we're there to help. We're not there to hinder. You know, we want to provide a service that will help repairers and help obviously MBRA members, and just help, you know, just well, and us to be able to, you know, do a bit of business. So
so as soon as that's all done then, Andy, then as soon as you got the terms and conditions done, which you do electronically on this site anyway, and then once you've set up the payment details, then you can put through as many estimates as you want on a daily basis, and you'll get through those. And what's the SLAs? What's the SLAs like? So I know you,
for us,
almost 24 hours.
We've always said 24 hours. We're always a lot quicker than that. It depends on volumes during the day. Again, because it's an ad hoc service, you know, you can have a massive influx one day, and you could be a bit quiet the next day. It varies, but we do our best to get them done within 24 hours. Yeah, we've got some dedicated team members that will work, you know, around the clock if need be to give what's required. You know, we are sometimes dabbling over the weekends as well. So, you know, it is there. At the moment, you know, again, as most people, claims are a little bit lower. We're turning them around a lot quicker than 24 hours. Again, we will also talk to repairers. We're not just there, we're not behind the screen. You know, if we need to ask questions, we'll be picking up the phone. Hopefully, when they register onto Virtual VDA, that they've got contact details for the person we will be able to contact. So it's no good an accounts team setting it up and then we phone the accounts office and then going, we know nothing about it. Ideally, the person that we would, who is on the platform, it would be the contact that we would make on site and work with. You know, if we need some additional images, or if it's okay for us to kind of contact the customer in a way. That's it. We work together. You know, we're not just you don't just send us something and then we do it, send it back, and you don't hear from us.
I get the message. You want to help, right?
Yeah.
What's the magic average number of hours it takes to get an estimate back?
Again, it depends on volume, but we're getting them within the same day. So if you send one in the morning, you're getting it back in the afternoon.
There you go. That's what I wanted. Thank you very
much.
So this is an additional page, and it's not all about subletting. This is a helps, hints and tips for VDA. So even if you don't want to sublet an estimate, we'd like the VDAs to come onto the technical page of the MBRA, go onto the virtualvda.co.uk and look at the hints and tips that will help create an estimate that includes a lot of information about things that you can charge legitimately, and how the insurance companies and the work providers would like it charged also. Mick, would you want to talk to us a little bit?
Yeah, so this is a starting point really for a community, for all the repair community to add in information. It's all vetted, so you know, any information you add to that page, if you like, is vetted by our internal team, just in case we have any copyright issues or actually the information's incorrect. We research it in the background before we release it. So it can be something as simple as, what was I looking at yesterday, the differential between blending a plastic fuel flap or a metal fuel flap, and where to find that, where that information is. So if you're challenged by an engineer, then obviously you can go look for it, and the information should be in there. So I actually encourage everybody that's in the MBRA, all the membership, to go on there and add as much information as you can, because everybody knows something somebody else doesn't.
Yeah,
and the more we can share that around the network, the better for everybody. And this is free. We're not charging. This is FOC for everybody.
Yeah, and it's an easy search function as well. So if you want to search for something, it pops up. It's not time consuming.
Nope.
And like Mick just said, if you contribute towards this, the library gets bigger and bigger, and it's for the VDA community. So this will grow. I've got no doubts whatsoever. So thank you, Mick. So business cost, how will this benefit the repairer? VDA cost per day, £200 on average salary and additional costs, and this includes any benefits. Estimate cost £50 on average, be it good, bad or indifferent. You don't know the quality, potentially. So allow your VDA to concentrate on the quality and accuracy of their estimating on complex jobs. And what I mean there is, if your VDA is stressed up to the gunnels, he's got too much work, then you're not going to get the quality estimating out of him. But if you relieve some of that pressure and potentially sublet some of that off, then you could. Allow your VDA the training they deserve in what is a very confused technical market. So perhaps one day a month, you say, right, absolutely no estimating for you today. We're going to sublet it. You're on a training day. And it gives that access. Cost of subletting an estimate through the services just mentioned, 3250 or 3750, inclusive of Audi Shell on the 3750, and that's net of VAT. Average initial increase in hours, possibly 3 hours, given the expertise that Andy's team has on creating the estimates and the knowledge, and that's based on £28 per hour. Non-Auditex users may gain £50 additionally on paints and materials. If you've taken a rough guess as to how much you think you should charge for paints and materials, if you use an Auditex platform and the expertise through Andy's team, that's potentially what you could gain. Reduction in courtesy car costs is a no-brainer. If you get an estimate back same day, then that's probably 1 or 2 days less courtesy cars you'll got on the road, give it to another customer. No delay on estimates, it's on average 8 hours. So you've got the potential for £164 to be increased onto your estimate, which is near enough 10% of the national average repair cost, which, you know, you're not doing anything wrong by doing this sublet service. It's not under the radar, okay? It's a quality estimate built as work providers would like it. So this isn't anything that's being hidden. And I'm sure there's probably some insurance companies on the webinar today. VDAs can utilize the MBRA technical page. The hints and tips, absolutely free to use, and upskill what you don't know. And then there's a page on there you can go on and you can upload the knowledge that you have. Because I think, like Mick and Andy, not everybody knows everything. So it'd be good for you to share that knowledge. And then we create a VDA forum. So we're going to run out of time in a minute. So Andy, do you want to talk to us about what you're proposing?
Yeah, I think what we want to try and do is get people to kind of have a go at using the platform, visit the website and look at the hints and tips and get involved in, you know, like Mick said, building that community and trying to help one another. For the estimating side of things, what we want to try and do is give a 2-week trial offer, and just to show people, you know, the benefits of using or utilising the service as and when they need it. There's a 50% discount, you know, over that 2-week period per estimate. Again, people can talk to me on that when they, you know, upload their stuff. If they want me to give them a call, or want one of my guys to give them a call, they will do. But there's a 2-week trial offer, 50% discount, unlimited volume, and just to go from there, really. And then I believe the MBRA will be giving away a bottle of champagne for the first 3 repairs to reach 25 estimates. So I'll come and have a drink with you.
Yeah, definitely. So for each repairer that puts through 25 estimates, the first 3 will get a bottle of champagne. So we will know that by the intelligence that sits behind the subletting on this service. So thank you, Andy. I mean, 16.25 or 18.75 per estimate, it seems like a no-brainer that you trial it and see what, you know, especially through some of the imaging estimates you get coming through to you via customers at the moment. You could put those over and it's very cost effective. So questions, what questions have we got? So what is the fixed cost fee? We've put that down. Who can get a VDA for under 40k plus a car in London? Graph is out of step and not realistic for a fully qualified guy. So we go on, Andy.
Yeah, the data come from a recruitment agency, so it's an average. Yeah, I totally get in London, you know, people are getting paid a great deal amount more money, but in Devon they're being paid half of what some of the guys in London are being paid. So as an average, it does balance out. You know, we are seeing, you know, people's wages right down around the 25,000. We are seeing people around 55, 60,000 pounds. So There's like I said earlier, there's a big range gap depending where you go. But on an average, the company was called Adzuna, who give us the information and give us the how many people are out there currently. So I believe that's from the data that was there. But I totally get it. In London, with a company car, that's like I said, the wages were just basic wages. We're not looking at health plans. We're not looking at company cars. We're not looking at maybe IT equipment. We're not looking at pensions. Before you know it, you're way up before higher than that 35, 37, 40,000 pound mark, really.
Yeah. So where are the numbers coming from? It's collective experience on numbers from the team that's on the webinar today. Lee Hardy, should engineers be charging estimates and then sending back, or should they leave and ask for proof of work with images at the end instead of saving VDA's time and themselves, only requiring one change? What do you think, Mick?
Sorry, so read that again for me, Tom, if you don't mind.
Should engineers be changing estimates and then sending back, or should they leave and ask for proof of work with images at the end instead, and saving VDA's time and themselves, only requiring one change?
I think that goes to the core of what we're trying to do, to be honest. As much as I kind of understand where you're coming from, I think if we can get to the point where an engineer produces the assessment in the front, then actually that negates the need in the background, as it were, and the repairer's VDA actually supplements the engineer, as opposed to the VDA running around trying to do supplementaries all the time and engaging both parties a huge amount of time.
Yeah, cool. Jerry's put on a couple. So yes, you do need to register a crash assessor to obtain an account number to go forward. The font and color are very poor. Okay, we'll take that on board, Jerry, and we'll make it clearer when it goes onto the website. When tips are added, can we move away from false names, credibility, and add real names? Let's not go down the ABP route. And that's from an anonymous attendee.
Again, understand, no issue with that at all.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't see any issue with any of those. So Mark Connolly, to satisfy outer audit insurer MI, would you need to be set up on or a group Auditex accounts? Does this service deal with supplementary estimates, and is there an additional charge? Andy?
Well, basically what happens is what we try and do and what we try and promote, even when we do our coaching and training, is a free touch estimate. So initial estimate, if it's a roadworthy vehicle, obviously initial estimate sent for authority, and obviously we can then get it in, get parts ordered and do the bits and pieces. When the car comes on site, the vehicle should be stripped and we should do this estimate again. So we then get a second look at the car at strip stage or at strip for estimate stage. Again, it's holding the car back, going through the shop and causing any backlogs that way. The third touch would be a supplementary or final costing. So within the price that we charge, we do a free touch estimate. And I think estimates on site should also be encouraged to kind of look at a free touch estimate, spend the time on it initially, get it right, and let it go through the shop the way it is. There is going to be bits and pieces that you come across further along, but hopefully not too much. When it comes to the insurer, well, when we're doing the estimates, we can use our Auditex login, and we use the repairer's name in the address field. A lot of the insurers know what we do and see what we do, and they understand, what we're doing. So that doesn't matter. Again, we'll have an agreement together to say that we follow the best practices, GDPR, and all the other bits and pieces as well. Also what we do is we set up a user on the repairer's estimating system, i.e. if it's an Auditex, we've got a good relationship with Auditex as well. So what we're able to do is we set up a Crash Assessor UK login, so it's very transparent. You can see exactly what we're doing, how we're doing. You can also measure us through Audistats and stuff like that as well. We work for a big group, and we had to go through a lot of security issues with secure IP addresses, making sure we were doing the right things. So we know we're confident, even if we are using their Auditex and doing the estimates for them on their behalf, that it works. So again, we can have the conversation, after this, if need be, if anybody wants to discuss it further.
So does that cover off the how does data transfer get managed, Andy?
Well, yeah, data transfer, again, you've got your data transfer through into the portal, haven't you, which is built by Intel Auto, which is, you know, secure, GDPR compliant. The Auditex system is their system. We're signing a subcontractors agreement with them to say that we follow, you know, one, to satisfy BS 10125. So we're able to do that. Two, that obviously it shows that we're doing the right thing and we're meeting due diligence, and so on and so on. So, yeah.
Okay, we're running over shortly. So how would you deal with certain insurer engineers that return assessments based on their own rates? Did you get that one?
Yeah, so I mean, in real terms, if the repairers sent the details through for the hourly rates in advance, then Andy can actually produce the assessment based on those rates in advance anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to follow their contracts. You know, if they're a repairer that has a contract with an insurer, then we can't just make up our own rates. We have to follow their contracts and SLA. So,
okay, one other question I want to put through just before we end. When there's a dispute on an estimate that's outsourced, who spends the time backwards agreeing the dispute?
Well, we would have to, because we've done the estimate. Like I said before, it's only responsibility for that repair.
Right answer.
Yeah.
Right, guys, we are out of time, and I'd like to thank all the participants that have come on the call today. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your answers as well. This webinar will be posted on the MBRA website, and you'll be able to go onto the website, go on the technical page, and look at the virtualvda.co.uk and get yourself registered. Have a go. Andy, thank you for your time. Mick, thank you for your time. You've been awesome today. Really appreciate you coming on and being so honest. And that's it for today. So thank you all. Wait until the next webinar.
Thank
you very much.